Before we begin the episode, I would like to thank our sponsor, Chin Up Goggles, the new generation of vision training. Its simplistic design eliminates downward vision, improving a player's spatial awareness, anticipation, skill acquisition and execution. The findings have been supported by scientific research in CIT, now MTU. Be sure to visit chinupgoggles.com for more. Welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 48, I am delighted to be joined by Kilkenny camogie intercounty manager Brian Dowling. On this episode, we tackle all topics such as skills, developing a backroom team, the difference between coaching men and women, dealing with pressure, and so much more. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Hi Brian, thanks a million for coming on the podcast.
No problem, Marla. Thanks for having me.
Before we get into everything, would you mind introducing yourself to the coaches who might not know who you are?
Yeah, my name is Brian Dowling from Kilkenny. I'm a teacher in St. Kieran's College. My club is the Loughlin Gales. I've played for Loughlin's all my life and represent Kilkenny at minor, under 21 and senior level. And I'm currently the Kilkenny senior camogie manager.
Brilliant. So I suppose, how did you get into coaching? You mentioned there you did play intercounty hurling for Kilkenny.
I suppose I started to teach when I was teaching in Dublin in a school in Ballyboden, Cláiste. I suppose I got the job on the promise that I get involved in the hurling team, so I was delighted to help out. I was over the 14, 16s and senior team there. We had a very good bunch of players. Ryan Basquel was one of the players who comes top of my head. He's currently on the Dublin senior football panel. And his brother Collie Basquel was there as well, with James Madden, current Dublin senior hurler as well. They were all part of the team. Okay. We won the Leinster B title in senior for the schools the first time ever, and just was a brilliant year, and it was just got a great kick out, great buzz out of that. I was living in Dublin, so I was kind of away from my own club, wasn't involved in coaching, so I just had to get involved in coaching. A couple of years later, then my own club, I took over the under 16 team, and we're lucky enough to win the county final in the first year over them. I'd been involved in minor and 21 in club as well, and I just got the bug for it. I suppose I got involved in coaching when I was still hurling. I was hurling at a senior with the Loughlin Gales in the club, and I got involved in coaching, and I probably just loved it so much. I probably gave up hurling maybe before I should have given it up maybe, but I just okay. Really got just loved it, and I got a great kick out and a great buzz out of it.
I'm interested there, as you said, you were still playing while you were coaching. I'm doing the same. Did your attitude shift when you were playing because you had that experience as a coach?
Yeah, I think so, because I suppose I was always conscious that the players that I was coaching were going to my matches as well, and if I didn't play well, I was in the back of my mind, how can I go and train the following night and talk to these lads and tell them to do things, and I was very conscious, I suppose, of working hard and stuff like that. If I wasn't working hard on the pitch, how could I go? I'd say to players, you have to work hard and pull them up forward. So I probably was conscious of that. And, even I suppose a couple of times I would have felt that when I wasn't playing well myself, I probably wasn't in the right frame of mind for coaching. So that's probably why I stepped back from senior in the club and, played at junior level, just to kind of play for more enjoyment and just kind of focus a little bit more on the coaching side of things.
Mm-hmm. Looking back, I suppose, to getting involved in coaching and up to now, how do you think you've evolved as a coach?
Yeah, geez, I suppose when I look back first, I suppose setting up drills, you're just kind of setting up drills for the sake of setting up drills, put a cone there. You didn't even put any thought in, just once to look good and they're fancy, you're kind of happy enough. But I suppose now there's just so much thinking you have to go into it now. It's just all evolving, I suppose we would have done a lot of this ball work and static drills, which is, I still think there is a place for me in camogie and hurling at the moment. But I suppose, it's gone condition games, it's gone using the ball under pressure rather than doing stuff without pressure. So you're just evolving all the time. You're looking at what other teams are doing, seeing, I suppose, look at the benchmark. Limerick, I suppose, are the team for me at the moment that, look what they're doing, the way they play the game, and I think everyone is trying to copy that. It's not easy to do it, but, the way they keep the ball, the way they use the ball, the work rate off the ball is unbelievable. The running off the shoulder, that's what I think every manager wants to see. And, you just have to keep evolving. It keeps changing all the time. I suppose even tactics, I suppose when I started, it was just basically you named your team and that was it. And players went into the corner, stayed in the corner. Whereas nowadays, you might have two in the full forward line, one in the full forward line. Players are constantly moving around. You might have third midfielders. So, the tactical side of things is probably the biggest change since I've started, I'd say.
Okay. Out of interest with your own team and how you structure training, how much would you focus on the skills, let's say for a training session, like as a percentage, how much of skills work do you do at training?
I'd say about, I'd say still a huge amount of our training, probably 60, 70%, skills. Our warm-ups would always include the ball as much as we can. And we always try to play a match in training if we can, whether that's condition games or whether it's 15 or 15 game. But we do try to do everything with the ball if we can. But obviously there's other times we'll be working on tactical elements and maybe working with the fitness, stuff like that. But we definitely try and work on the first touch and ball to hand as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. I suppose, kind of talking about your own career, you mentioned before in a previous podcast that you were involved in the Kilkenny panel and you were dropped at the time. How do you think that has kind of played into your coaching? Like, I suppose if a coach hadn't had that experience, maybe they wouldn't think about the side of the player. How do you find that from your playing experience that factors into you as a coach?
Yeah, look, I suppose I was lucky enough to be called on Kilkenny senior panel when I was 18. It was a dream all my life to get on the panel, and I was absolutely thrilled to get in there. And I was very lucky to win 2 All-Ireland medals when I was there. But to get dropped off it when you're only 20, then it's the total opposite side of that. And I was absolutely devastated, and it took me a long, long time to get over it. And I suppose just every team now is a psychologist and stuff like that. I suppose I probably needed one at the time. I was still involved with the Kilkenny under 21 team that year, and I didn't enjoy that at all. I was trying to get my way back onto the senior team, but I was trying too hard, and then I wasn't playing as well as I should be playing, and it just probably got to me. And it was really, really tough time. Looking back on it now, but I suppose I did put it into my coach, and I would try and talk to players as much as I can, and try and ask players how they're feeling. And I like to think that I'm approachable. Especially the girls. They're very good to open up and be honest with us if there's any issues and stuff like that. They'll come forward and they'll talk to us, and I think that's becoming more and more in the game at the moment. I suppose when I was playing, you said nothing and you just got on with it. That's just the way it was, and
yeah,
I think that's changing now, in fairness.
Yeah. Do you use a sports psychologist with Kilkenny?
Yeah, we do. Jerry Fitzpatrick is with us there the last 2 years. He's brilliant. We probably don't. We use him a couple of times during the year, and then the girls. He's available to the girls if they need any one-on-one.
Okay.
they just go directly to him. So I know it's a great resource to have.
I've asked a couple of people this question now, but I'm interested to get your take. If you could put it as percentages, what do you think? If you could put the mental side of the game versus the physical side, what do you think it kind of comes out as a percentage?
It's a hard question. I suppose you asked me that, years ago, I probably would have said 20% was mental, but I think it's probably 40, 50% now. I just think it's gone huge. You can have all fitness and all your first touch, but if you're not mentally prepared and you can't cope with the pressure or can't cope with the big day, it doesn't matter. As a player myself, I know what it feels like to go out on the pitch and you just feel like your legs are like jelly and you just can't move, and it's just a terrible place to be. So you just have to be mentally prepared. But the message we always send out is if you do the hard work, that's all you can do. And whatever happens after the while, happens after that happens. You just have to be when the game gets going, they are going to make mistakes. You just have to try and get on with it, not to let the mistakes get in on it. And look, with these girls with the camogie, I suppose we lost 3 All-Ireland. The girls lost 3 All-Ireland finals in a row, and I suppose going back into All-Ireland last year. There was probably doubts there in their heads, and it's if I have to lose that final, where do we go from here? So you kind of have to try to put that at the back of your mind and just work as hard as you can, and that's all you can do, I think.
I suppose the sports psychologist is one of the main, let's say, even staple at this stage, part of every county and even club teams at this point. But when you're selecting your management team, what do you look for, and what sort of coaches and people do you want to surround the panel and the team?
Yeah, I think it's actually a very hard thing to do. You're a manager to put backroom teams together, because you're picking people that you've probably never worked with before, and someone else might recommend them, but you mightn't actually work well with them. You don't know until you go in there, and then it's too late. So I was very lucky with Kilkenny. I suppose the first person got in was Tommy Shefflin. He's our coach. He doesn't even like using the term coach himself, but he's just brilliant with the girls. He's very good. Working one-to-one with the girls as well, and he's an unbelievable help to me, and he's very experienced. That's probably a big thing I looked for, was experience. Pat O'Neill and Tree Larkin, who've played for Kilkenny in the past and won All-Stars for Kilkenny, and then Ray Chandler came with me. He was the there in 2019, so both of us stayed on. So it was great to have someone from 2019 as well. And Ray does a lot of girls with the girls, a lot of work with the girls and fitness wise and speed work and stuff like that. And just kind of we gel together really well. Obviously we don't agree on everything, but we trash things out, and it's just it's a great, just seem to have a good bond there at the moment. And I think everyone has bring something to it, and that's the main thing.
Do you find it hard to delegate as an inter-county manager? Is that something you've had to work on during your career?
Yeah, it probably is. I think I'm getting better at it. I suppose, looking back at a few club teams and stuff, I would have had selectors maybe, and they probably weren't keen on doing any of the coaching or the drills and stuff like that. They were just kind of selectors, and you're doing all the talking in the dressing room, and then you're going through the tactics, going out on the pitch, you're doing the warm-up, and then you're giving the team talk at half-time again, and you're giving instructions during the game. So I think the players are probably sick of listening to my voice, and I think it's important to have a different voice all the time, and that's the setup we have at the moment. There's not too much talking, but, between different people. But if something needs to be said, the lads will say it, and, I always feel that, they have that. If they want to say it, but if you don't want to say it, that's fine. It's up to themselves, but they know if they want to say something, they can. And that's it. Tommy takes the warm up, and Ray takes the warm up, and I don't get involved in that kind of side of things, because I do my talking and dressing and stuff like that. So then maybe one together. So it's just, I think you have to balance it out, and you have to trust the backroom team like you trust your players that you send out into the pitch.
I suppose as an inter-county manager, how much time do you actually spend, let's say during the week, whether it's at training, thinking about the game, prepping, just anything to do with the team? Like how many hours goes into that?
My wife will probably tell me too much. Anyway, just huge amount. I personally can't switch off from it anyway. One example was we got beaten by Galway in the last group game by a point, and I went away with wife Alison and 2 kids to Exeter for 2 nights, and I couldn't sleep for the 2 nights, and I just couldn't get out of my head, even though I was gone away with the family, and I tried to switch off, but you're looking at your phone and you're ringing the other selectors and you're talking through the match, and then you're looking back at the match and you're just thinking, what could you have done? What are you going to do for the next 2 weeks and stuff like that? So it's always in your mind. And, if you train on a Tuesday night, you're planning, for the training on Tuesday night, and that's over, then you're trying to plan for the Thursday night, and then you're planning for the Saturday, and you might be dealing with injuries in between that. It might be some player issues. You might have to talk to a player, tell them they're not starting the following week or whatever, and you might have to send a player a text to tell them that they are going well, they're not going well, what they need to improve on. You might have to rearrange pitches or something like that. So there's just so much in it. But you don't really switch off from it. But look, I wouldn't be doing it if I wouldn't love it, so I'm not going to complain about it.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned there the feedback from players and that open channel of communication. How much feedback do you give them, and can they give feedback to you? And I suppose how open is that channel? Is there periods of time where you have time for kind of communication and give feedback, or is that just naturally something that happens throughout training or matches?
Yeah, I suppose we use an app that we just, the girls can send feedback after training, how training went and stuff like that. And I suppose we get a few things from that. And then that might open up a channel of communication. And look, I suppose you can spot things in training sometimes with girls, and you just have to go to them and ask them, is everything okay? And or else they'll come to us, or else just might be a little chat at training. Maybe, if they're there before training, at start of training, just call over to them and see how things are. And just important to try to get around to all of them, every now and again, and just even a little text here or there or phone call, can make a big difference. So look, they know that they can contact us if there's any issues or any problems. And it's constructive criticism or whatever it is, or if it's praise or if something has to be said, it be said. And the girls know that. And again, if you have to tell a player they're not starting, give them the reasons why, and I think they appreciate that. They mightn't agree to the decision, but I think they appreciate that you explain maybe why they're not starting, or why they were taken off the last day or something like that.
Do you use some sort of a leadership group with the team, or is that something you just you're not interested in maybe?
Yes, yeah, we would have leadership groups, I suppose, all right, but mainly at the start of the year, but I suppose as the year goes on, different leaders probably step up, and you probably encourage different players to talk, and I think it does take a bit of time for players to feel comfortable in a group to become leaders. It's not an easy thing to do at the start, so I think you'll always have your 5 or 6 players who'll step up and be leaders, and I just hope that a few other girls will follow them as well.
Mm-hmm. What's that first training session / meeting like at the beginning of the year with the group? And do you set goals for the year? What's that conversation like? Just take us through a little bit of that starting point of the season.
I suppose it's different every year because it depends on where you're coming from the previous year. I suppose like 2 years ago we came back and we're after losing 3 All-Ireland finals, so suppose you're trying to think, what are you going to say to these girls? What are you're trying to be positive, but you have to be realistic as well. That, these girls, it's easy for me to say, forget about losing the 3 All-Ireland finals, but that's in the back of their heads. So you have to deal with it. And, I suppose that particular year we spoke about it, and, we trashed out what we think went wrong, what we could do to improve it. And we set our goals and set our targets, what we want to achieve for the rest of the year. But look, I suppose it's just getting the ball in motion. I just would go through the values and what we expect, especially for new girls on the panel, just kind of what we expect from everybody. And, and just state how privileged everybody is to be part of an inter-county setup. This year then was obviously completely different because it was a Zoom session, it was online, and you're just going through a PowerPoint presentation. You're going through the girls, and I don't even know if they're listening, to be honest, so it's not an easy thing to do, I suppose the last 2 years as a manager, it's all been COVID related, and it hasn't been easy. So, but look, that's the same for everybody. So, just have to get on with it. Hopefully next year it'll be a lot better now.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned before in an interview about COVID, particularly I think it was last season, and the importance of not putting the expectation or, like, let's say, the individual plans in place, whether it was skills or running with the girls. And naturally, I think a lot of the inter-county players just kept it up themselves. Talk us through that decision not to put, let's say, a certain checklist for the girls. And do you actually think that was a positive? And I get the sense from listening to a lot of players that break from the inter-county season brought back the love of the game and the love of playing for your county, compared to maybe years before where at one stage it was like there was no off season.
Yeah, I suppose at the start we probably did have a plan in place. We didn't. I suppose none of us realised what ahead of us. We probably thought it was only going to be for a couple of weeks, but when we realised it was going to be a long period of time, we kind of just decided between the management group that, look, these girls have been on the road a long time. What's the point in flogging them now? And, they couldn't go to a pitch. It was just going to be running down the road and stuff like that. So we just said, look, just switch off. And we actually had to ring some of the girls and tell them to stop doing stuff, because we were doing too much. And because everyone was bored, I was even out doing a bit running myself. That's how bored I was. It was just pure boredom. People wanted just to pass the time. But, we just kind of said, look, whenever we do get back, we wanted to be fresh and wanted to really look forward to it. And I suppose it worked in our favour that the clubs went first, because the players just went back. And, I went to some of the club games last year, and there was just a great buzz around the place. Everyone was just so happy to be back playing. And when we got back in with the county, then it was just everyone was buzzing for it, and we were very lucky the way it worked out for us, because we had a few players that weren't involved at the start of the year, but because of COVID, they were involved. So it probably worked in our favour that we got these players back, whether it was travelling or injuries and stuff like that. So it kind of did work in our favour. And look, we just trusted the players. We kind of said, look, stay tipping away at different things. If you did need any help, come to us and we'll give you programs to do. But just, now's the time to switch off, take a break from it, because you just can't keep it going. You can't keep on to players all the time. As mentioned already, the mental side of things, players just have to switch off from it.
Totally. I'm interested in the All-Ireland final, I suppose, the weeks leading up to the game. How do you approach that as a manager, and how do you kind of plan moving forward? Do you work backwards? Do you work forwards? Talk us through that whole couple of weeks beforehand.
Yeah, I think it was only 2 weeks between the finals, so you actually don't have much time. You have to have your team in the Friday week before the match. You're trying to name your team and stuff like that, and you're trying to get the gear in straight after the semi-final and try to get all that kind of stuff out of the way. There's a lot of stuff in the background. You have a lot of media work to do, a lot of interviews. There's media looking for different players, you're trying to send different players to go in, and all that kind of stuff. So there is a lot to go through, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to stay focused on training, trying to make it, as same as normal. It's an All-Ireland final, but you want to try and make it, don't change things too much, just keep it the same. And again, I think probably benefit is a bit last year. Going up to the All-Ireland final, it was very strange, but when it's Croke Park, it wasn't, I suppose the girls weren't as nervous maybe as it would be in a big day. With the crowd there was nobody there. It was very strange walking around the pitch before the game, and there was pure silence, and you're just walking in. And I just think it probably helped us after losing 3 All-Ireland finals in a row that we had huge pressure going into that game if we had to lose. So I think not having the crowd there probably helped us. We would obviously, after winning, we would have loved to have everybody there, but I suppose it took away a little bit. But look, there's a huge amount of work that goes in just to preparing for it. And even last year was a little bit different as well, with trying to plan what after the game and stuff like that. And we had a hotel booked, and then we had to cancel the hotel due to COVID, and then we didn't want to get caught up in the whole thing of people getting worried about what's going to happen after the game. So we actually didn't even know what we were doing. We just let it go, and we'd not planned for after the game. And that was strange, as well. But suppose it was very strange times, so we just had to get on with it.
Exactly. How do you manage as a group the sort of the outside noise? Like you mentioned there, the media, the different things. Like, is it very hard to stay completely away from that thing, like that side of things, as a manager and as a group, and try navigate that whole side of things? And even, let's say, after winning the All-Ireland and having that expectation, everyone's saying All-Ireland champions, All-Ireland champions. I think every interview they mention that you're the All-Ireland champions.
Yeah, I suppose it was nicer hearing the All-Ireland champions rather than the team that lost 3 All-Irelands in a row, because every interview I did last year, that's all I was hearing. And had to explain the last 3 All-Ireland finals, so it was a bit nicer than All-Ireland champions. So I don't know what to be saying about it this year now, but look, I suppose you can get caught up in the media, but you can listen to what you want to listen to, you know. I think players and management teams are the same. You can listen to what you want to listen to, you know. You can stay off social media, or you can look at social media, that's if you want. No, I suppose you can always use things in your favour as well, what other managers, what other teams are saying about you, and try and use that in your dressing room maybe as well. But look, again, people have their opinions, and you know, sometimes we hear things in the media and I suppose we use them in our favour more than anything. But you know, I don't know about the players. You know, we encourage them to stay away from that if they can, but I suppose you can't control that either.
With the 2020 season and this year, and I don't know if it's going to be in next year or not, but how did you find the water breaks, and did you have a specific structure for that? And I suppose at half time, how do you find the sort of the halftime talk? I'm interested, as I said, I'm coaching now, and I'm just interested in hearing from other people's experience and how they balance saying enough without overloading players.
Yeah, no, it's true, and that's something I'm trying to learn all the time, is what you're saying to players. You know, you probably think that you know, you're saying, you're trying to get everything across, but they're getting too much across, so you have to balance it out, you know. 2 or 3 pints definitely at a water break is more than enough, you know. I personally like the water breaks most of the time, but sometimes you're going really well, then you don't want the water breaks, you know. You'd rather keep the flow of the game going. But look, it is good if something is happening in the game and you can't get the message onto the girls, you know. It's great to just say, look, I have a third midfielder out, this is what we want you to do. So I think the water breaks can be used for you know, tactical side of things and getting 1 or 2 messages across. But I suppose it is a good chance then to, you know, maybe if you're not going well, is to get the girls going and say, like, what's going on, and just get the work rate up. And you know, and even at half time, I suppose you plan on tactics and stuff like that, and you get a couple of messages across. But then most of the times you just lose the head and you just get all motivational and stuff like that, and you have all the plans in the world just go out the window, and you just get really motivational with the girls. So you just have to get on with it. And look, again, it's you can be planning for all you want, but suppose you get 2 or 3 messages across, who knows what works. You know, some days you can be very relaxed and the team goes out and plays brilliant. Other days you can be banging hurls off tables and they go out and play brilliant. So it's just hard to know what works, you know. And I suppose you can only ask your players that, what works for them, and everyone is different as well. You know, some players are, you know, don't need any, you know, any kind of shouting or whatever, and other people do, like, you know. So everyone is different as well. So you just have to try and balance it and just try and stay as calm as you can and get the 2 or 3 messages on board. And you know, just a simple thing about, you know, even a couple of stats thrown in there, you know, about puck outs won, puck outs lost, you know, the hooks and blocks, the breaking ball, that kind of stuff, you know, and just get that message across and show them that, look, we've only had 3 hooks and blocks in the forwards, or we haven't won our last 10 puck outs, or whatever it is. And, you know, that's in their heads going out on the pitch then. I think that's good information to give the teams when you're heading out.
There was a brilliant clip this year from the championship with Liam Sheedy. As you spoke there, some people need, you know, the big shout in the face as motivation, other players don't. It's interesting trying to find that balance. But do you have sort of like a reset word or kind of reminder, whether it's for yourself or for the team, to just keep focused, or let's say if you make a mistake or something goes wrong, that you just focus and go again?
I don't, but it's a good idea now that you say that. Maybe it's a good word.
I'll take credit for that one.
No, it's a good one. I suppose we would have used things in the past, like bans and stuff like that, and, you know, just things like that, just a reminder, or some writings and hurls and stuff like that, just not to panic. And, you know, again, I suppose going back to after losing a couple of All-Irelands, you know, again, not to panic, just to stay in the zone and stay relaxed. And, you know, if things, don't be thinking of the negative, stay in the positive zone. And that's important. And that's, as a manager, that's important, that, you know, it's not me telling the girls to be positive and then I'm all negative on the sideline and stuff like that. So that's something I'm trying to learn all the time as well, that, you know, preach what you're saying to the girls as well.
You spoke about before meeting Mick Bohan, and a couple of players mentioned it as well, kind of taking a little bit of inspiration from Dublin and looking towards them. I think they lost a couple in a row, and now they did the 4 in a row and they lost this year. But you actually met with Mick Bohan. What was that conversation like, and what did you pick up from him?
So look, I was my first year in inter-county management. I suppose I was new to the scene, and I did a year with Anne Downey as a coach, and I was coming in at the deep end really. After losing three All Irelands in a row, and where do you go from here? What do you say to these girls? How do you pick them up off the floor and just look for some bit of inspiration, I suppose. And I reached out to Mick, and look, went up to Dublin after school one day, and in fairness to Mick, he was very open, very approachable, and spent a couple of hours in his house, drank a few cups of coffee, and had a great chat. And just asked him what did he do, and look, he was in the same situation. He took over a team that had lost three in a row, and I suppose we didn't know where to go, and just gave me a couple of pointers, a couple of tips, things that they did and things you can do. But no, it's again just said be yourself, and it's your team, and you don't be copying anybody else. Was kind of the big message, and I just learned to maybe kind of give me a couple of ideas about fundraising and what they have done, in the background with Dublin as well. And again, I said it before, I think on another podcast, Grace Welch put up in our WhatsApp group last year after Dublin had won the four in a row, and they said, look what they're after doing after losing three finals in a row. They were an inspiration to us. They are an inspiration to us. What they've done is unbelievable. That I suppose you always look for what someone else can do, in a similar situation. Look, and that gave us hope. It gave us hope that look, it's not impossible. We can do just because we lost three. It doesn't mean we can't go and win it. And it did give us hope. And that was a good conversation. I suppose it was a good start to the year, and just got me thinking in the right direction.
Do you reach out to other coaches quite often, and look at other sports, or was that just sort of like a once-off?
No, I wouldn't probably reach out. I'd look at different things. I'd do watch. I suppose during lockdown, I suppose loads of webinars and reading books and stuff like that. Look, I'm always looking to try and pick up other things and see how other people do things. I suppose as I mentioned already, Limerick would definitely be the team that I'd be looking closely at. Paul Kinnerk, I think he's unbelievable what he does as a coach, and John Kiley as a manager, pulling it all together. They're looking at definitely take things from other sports. I think basketball has been mentioned hugely, in the last couple of years. Any book or any podcast I'm reading, the different things. Kevin Welch's book at the moment, reading, but the aspect of basketball that he brought into it. So, just defending together and attacking together, and just even feet work, all that kind of stuff. So, look, you can incorporate different things from different teams. So, I suppose we've all used stuff from the All Blacks in the past as well, all the stuff that they do, about even cleaning out the sheds, as I say, the girls would all clean out the dressing rooms after every match and stuff like that. And that's just a given at this stage. So, you would try and set your values at the, just in comparison, I suppose, to the top teams.
What are the values of the group out of interest?
Sure, look, I suppose they change all the time. But just, look, I suppose everyone has the same, just that you're hard working, and, that you're motivated, come to training. And, I think a big thing is that you're humble, and you're kind of privileged to be in a situation of being part of a Kilkenny senior camogie team. It's not everybody gets the opportunity to do it. And, I suppose the message we always say that, for as long as you're here, do the best you can for the jersey. And when you go, make sure that jersey's left in a better place. And, I think in fairness, the girls can always say that.
Brilliant. When you're picking a squad, and I mentioned to you what I'm doing with my coaching as well, but how do you balance picking immediate talent versus maybe development and the players that might not be impact right now but maybe down the line, and how do you kind of find that balance when picking a panel or when picking a group?
Yeah, we have I work with John Scott's the intermediate manager in Kilkenny, so we've kind of two squads. So we'd pick a big panel in the senior panel, and then a lot of them players would be eligible for intermediate as well. So obviously if we pick 35 or 36, we can't get games for all them girls. So we brought in two minors last year onto the panel, and we a lot of 20, 21-year-olds on the panel as well. And it kind of takes maybe a year or two to develop up the senior level. So we get them in, train with us, and then they go with the intermediates as well, and they get to play in the intermediate All Ireland, with the intermediate team, and they got to play in the All Ireland this year, which is a great experience for them. They train with seniors, and they're part of our setup, and they're playing intermediate games. So we think it works. And hopefully next year we'll see the value of that a couple of them girls now that were playing intermediate this year, after coming in, we'll step up to the mark next year.
You mentioned there, like, it's obviously a fantastic opportunity for the girls to come in and get that experience at the intermediate level, train with the seniors. Is that something that maybe, let's say Gaelic football or hurling in the men's side of things need to look at more? I know there's some junior and intermediate competitions, but overall as a development, do you think that maybe we need to, as coaches, even maybe at club level, need to really look at integrating and developing a larger group of players more?
Yeah, it is a hard one, like a lot of inter-county panels would have 36, 37 on it. And, on the inter-county panels, you can only pick 26 on a match day. So you're leaving behind 10 straight away, and they're not allowed to play club games then as well. So you could have a player going 3 or 4 months without any games at all, bar training games. And, no, it is a very good point. I don't know what you can do about it. I know they used to have intermediate championships, but, that's gone now. I think it's scrapped. So I don't know what you can do. Maybe a B competition. I don't know what it is, but, definitely the often see players coming back into the club scene after being with the county, not playing games. It does affect their form, because, their confidence is very low. They might actually be subs at training, and they're not actually getting even game time in training, and they come back to their clubs then, and their confidence is really low. So, again, you have to try to keep players going. At the end of the day, why are we playing sports? Play as many matches as you can. I know we can only play 15, but it's to try and get as much game time into players, and otherwise they won't develop.
Exactly. As a coach, how do you balance improving individuals versus a team?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I suppose trying to get the time to do everything. But I suppose we look back on all the games and as a team what we can improve on, and different players. Then it's great with the video analysis when you get the player clips afterwards. You can see the player on 7 or 8 possessions, whatever it is, and maybe to keep turning to the right hand side, or maybe they're striking off the back foot, or maybe they're not running off the shoulder, or maybe they're not working hard enough, whatever it is, and you can show the player the video clip, and then talk him through that training, or you can, send it to him and talk to him over a message or over a phone call. So I think a lot of the individual stuff probably has to be done outside the training field. Maybe there's a couple of things you can work on half an hour before training, but I suppose you've only that 3 times a week working with the group, so it's hard to fit everything in, and you kind of have to get all that individual stuff done maybe outside of the hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half that we're on the pitch for the 3 times a week.
So what I'm guessing, and I've spoken to a number of coaches about this, is a lot of the responsibility is now on the players to improve that. Is that something that you've noticed, that girls do take that responsibility and do work at what they need to do?
Yeah, they do, in fairness, but it's like everybody, some people don't see things that they're doing. We're all there and we play sport, and we think maybe we're doing this until you actually see the video clip back, or someone might point it out, that, geez, I didn't actually realize I was doing that. I didn't realize I was turning to me right 4 times in a row, or whatever it is. So, it's just to point out these little things, and then say, look, just go work on that now and train and try and improve for the next game. Or it can be the opposite side, that, praising the girl for maybe, look at you got 5 turnovers and they led to 5 scores, and again, it's not just negative stuff, it's passing on the positive message. So straight away going out the next day, then, she has in her head that, that look, they're noticing the work rate, they're noticing the turnovers, it's not just getting the scores on the board. So I think it's important that it's not just focusing on the negatives, it's make sure that you're praising them for the good things that they do as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested in this conversation, and you don't have to name anyone here, but what do you think separates the good from the great players? What's that difference, that just that little intangible thing that you see in the top players, whether it's your own teams or other teams?
I think it's how they perform on the big day. It's when in the games in the melting pot, when it's in the pressure is really on, the big players stand up, and it's even, when they're not playing well, things aren't going well, they can still do something that can influence the game. And, that's what I think that really determines the great players. And that's how they're remembered, because they step up in the big moments, in all sports, whether it's Cristiano Ronaldo in soccer, or whatever it is, Henry Shefflin in hurling, or Anne Dalton in camogie. These players, they've done it time and time again when the pressure is on. Henry Shefflin, 2009 All-Ireland final, wasn't having the best game of his life, and had to stand up over a penalty and buried in the roof of net, and Kenny won the All-Ireland against Tipperary, and he said he felt the nerves coming up to that penalty, but nobody doubted him in Kilkenny that he was going to score that, because we knew he's done it before, and he did it after that again. And I just think the big day, the big players step up and they thrive on it, but that comes from experience as well. It takes a bit of time, and it doesn't happen straight away. It does take a couple of years to get that.
Do you get nervous before games, or have you finally gotten over that?
I probably would get a bit nervous at times. It's funny, sometimes I wouldn't be nervous at all. Even the All-Ireland final last year, I wasn't nervous at all. I don't know why. I was really relaxed, and even the girls we stopped in DCU on the way, and even I said to the lads, the management team, Jesus, are we too relaxed here? What's going on? Just everyone seemed to be relaxed. I don't know what it was, and I don't know. Sometimes you get nervous even for a league game, and then for a championship game you'd be fine. But look, I suppose getting the balance right, sometimes you might be nervous and you'd be wondering, are you actually prepared enough for it? So I think you'd always have them butterflies there in the stomach, and I suppose when the butterflies aren't there, it means something important isn't happening. So it's nice to have them.
Do you have a particular routine for yourself or for the girls before a match? Are you superstitious at all?
Not really, I suppose. Well, the last, I suppose, two league final and Ireland final we met before the game, and just the order for the food was wrong. We had no sandwiches, we had no scones, so things weren't going well. The Ireland final, the girls had to go off in their cars and get sandwiches in the petrol station to make sure they were fed, and the same thing happened in the league final. And the Ireland semi-final this year, we actually went and everything was right. So it was a bad start to the day that everything was right. So maybe next year now I'll have to make sure the orders are wrong again.
Yeah. That's the new tradition for the team.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Throughout your whole career, I suppose you've coached underage lads, you've coached men, you've coached women. What's the difference between coaching men and women? What are the different styles, or do you notice maybe a difference, or do you approach them the same?
Yeah, it is different. I definitely find the girls more open, and they definitely take things on board probably a bit more. Now I probably compare underage boys and girls kind of would be similar. They're very approachable, kind of love getting feedback and stuff like that. I suppose older, the men's teams, stuff like that's a little bit different. They're probably, probably don't take the feedback on as much, and they're, I suppose they're not as, they don't come forward as much, if they have any problems like that, they'll probably try and hide them. That's what I find. I think that's kind of changing in teams at the moment as well. But look, I suppose I have coached mainly underage boys and obviously the ladies team at the moment. So I would compare them fairly similar. I was involved with Loughlin's, my own club, under 16s and minor, and great relationship there with lads for 4 years. And, they were just mad into it, and that's what I kind of similar with camogie girls. It's, they're there before us when we get training. They love it, and that was the same with the under 16s and minors I had. They just loved it so much, and it's easy kind of job for me then to go in and manage them when they're like that.
Is that something that was spoken about, girls showing up before training and getting stuff done, or was that just something that they do normally anyway?
Yeah, no, it was spoken that. I suppose when I went in there first, the girls would be there at 6:30 and stay in dressing until 2 minutes to 7 and then come out to the pitch. So I just made the point, what's the point to come and train in half an hour early and you just stand having a chat around. So in fairness, I think this year we're probably there nearly too early, and girls are probably getting too much work done before the train, and then they go and train. So it's getting the balance right. But I just think, again, they just wanted to learn, wanted to improve all the time. And, it's a great sign that they wanted that, whether it's working on sharp hookouts or free takers, or, working on the forwards, working on their shooting, or, whatever is working on the first touch. It's a great sign of players. And, you have buy-in when you see players doing that, rather than players walking out the pitch with 5 minutes gone and in 5 minutes go on training. And, that's going back to my own time in Kilkenny senior setup. It was the best players were out early. It was Henry Shefflin's, the Martin Comforts, and these players, they were out. Henry Shefflin used to be out before anybody practicing frees and shooting practice. TJ Reid is the same now. So people look at it and think, that these things happen naturally. They don't. That comes from hard work all the time. Martin Comfort was from my own club, Loughlin's, and he'd tell you himself he's an average club hurler, and he got called on Kilkenny senior panel, and the work that he did in his first touch in training, outside of training, was just unbelievable. Himself and James McGarry, who's current selector on the Kilkenny team, used to be there an hour before training and absolutely belting balls at each other for an hour, and he just got his touch unbelievable, and that just came from hard work. And that's what you have to do to reach the top level. You just have to keep working at your weaknesses and keep improving on your strengths.
Is that something that you think is the difference between, let's say, a top intercounty versus a club player? I guess the gap is narrowing, but it is narrowing between the two. But I guess some intercounty teams, like Limerick, for example, they're miles ahead of everybody. But from an individual point of view, what do you see as the difference between an intercounty standard player and a club player?
I think the speed at what players do things. You can see a player doing unbelievable things in club, and you think that they're going to be, yes, they'll step up now next year for the intercounty, and then you bring them in and they're involved in intercounty setup, and they're just not able for the speed of the game. And that's definitely, your speed of striking, your first touch, getting the ball away under pressure. You get that extra half a second in club hurling, whereas you just don't get that time in intercounty. You don't get that time to think, to make decisions. Decision making is a huge thing, and just the speed at what you do things is everything. And I definitely think that's probably the biggest thing for me, is that the speed. That the difference in club and county is the speed.
For any of the, let's say, coaches listening that with younger teams, to teach that decision making at speed, is there anything in particular that you found useful or that you would recommend coaches to implement with younger players? I'm talking kind of the teenage range.
Yeah, I think condition games, I suppose you have to work on first touch, without any pressure at all, there's no point going straight in a condition game and players can't control the ball. But, I think you have to build up process, whether it's 5v2 or 6v3, whatever it is, get players comfortable in training, hitting the ball under pressure and just getting them doing it faster, having pressure on them. Because I suppose if you're doing unopposed drills all the time, and players look great, go into a game, then different championship game and players on top of them, don't have that time, don't have time to think. Just it's everything's 100 mile an hour, especially you get to Thurles, Croke Park, whatever it is, inter-county level, you just don't have that time to think. And even in club, get to a county final or a county semi-final, or you're playing the biggest rivals, players are in on top of you straight away. So it's just to make them comfortable in training as much as possible in condition games. And I think if they're comfortable there, then they'll go out to the pitch and they do. But if you don't practice and train, you can't expect to do them on the pitch in the bigger match then.
What do you see as maybe the most underrated skill or attribute in the game at the moment?
I suppose in camogie, it's striking, because it's I suppose it's great attribute to have a couple of players that can score from long distance, in camogie, and I think it's improving every year since I've been involved at the standards. It's raising all the time. It's even all the way there in the All-Ireland final, got a couple of Aaron McGrath got 2 scores. What her last score at the end, I think, was nearly out past the 70, 80 yards. Like, that wasn't happening a couple of years ago. Players are just practicing on their long striking, and I suppose a couple of years ago, we weren't seeing the scores were very low in camogie games, they weren't high, whereas now the referees are letting it go a bit more, the scores are higher. But I think that striking is a huge thing. And again, some players might look very good in club, but in inter-county, that they're able to hit that ball 50, 60 yards, and I think that's a crucial thing.
How much of an impact are the new rules having on the game? Have you noticed a big difference since the rule changes? Do you think it's a very positive thing? Do you think maybe they should even look to bring it back a little bit more and let the game flow even more than it is now even?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Like, when I got involved first, it was just always so hard watching the games, especially the league games. Just the refs were so fussy. Everything was a free. You couldn't do anything, it was a free. And even some of the games still are, some referees are very, very fussy. But in fairness, the championship this year, I thought refs did a great job and they let the games go. And there is still mixed rules. The shoulder, sometimes the player hits a really good shoulder, they can be pulled back for it, which I think is wrong. The players don't really know what's a shoulder. And there is a couple of rules. There's one there where you run into a player into the chest and the free goes out the other way, which I think is a crazy rule. Player stands their ground, there's nothing they can do. But I definitely think the game is going the right direction. It's getting faster, it's better to watch. There was a couple of All-Ireland finals there, Kilkenny involved themselves against Cork, and it's just free after free after free. Nobody wants to watch that, and I think the last couple of years, the All-Ireland final we had against Galway, the Galway and Cork All-Ireland final, I think the games are brilliant to watch. There's great intensity, physicality, and there's good hurling in it as well. So I think let the game go, let it be physical. That's what the girls want. They're all doing strength and condition now, so I think every manager, every player wants that.
After winning the All-Ireland title, I guess it was different because of COVID, but do you watch back the game with the players? I know probably individuals watch the game, and do you dissect it, or is that something you kind of look to and just kind of leave in 2020? And do you mention, like, let's say throughout the 2021 season, or maybe even at the beginning, is that something you mention about winning the All-Ireland, or is it a new season, new goals, we park 2020?
Yeah, I suppose we didn't watch it back as a group because we won on the 12th of December, and I think the country went into lockdown fairly quick after that. So I don't think we met as a group until April, I think it was. We were back together, which was a long time. It was crazy, it felt so strange going back after that length of time. We didn't see the cup didn't get the cup after Kilkenny until June or July, and that was in the middle of the season, which was strange. And players still haven't got their medals from that year either, so now we have the medals, but we haven't been able to organise a proper gathering for it yet. So, again, everything was just all over the place. I suppose mention back the game, we'd always reference games, whether it was the Cork game semi-final last year or the All-Ireland final or whatever games, there's always things you can take from different games, whether good or bad. You'd always be looking back at different things, and, you would look back at different things you did well, things you did bad, and you might get Sarah Burke is doing the stats and video analysis for us. I'd ask her to put some stuff together, and we'd look back on them. So yeah, you definitely would look back at different clips, and see what you can learn from, and supposed to point out the good things that we can do, and hopefully that we can keep doing them in the future.
Is you just mentioned the stats there. I'm interested. Is from a team point of view, obviously you get the stats, but do individuals have? Obviously they have stats, but do they receive those stats? Do they look for them, or is that something you just keep maybe towards a team?
Yeah, no, we'd send them to the team. Yeah, the players. I think the players like them.
Okay.
Looking at their possessions and the hooks and blocks and stuff like that, and involvement in scores and all that kind of stuff, and the GPS as well. The crack in that, I suppose, who was getting the most running. I think Anne Dalton was very unhappy. She was the top of the group there for a while, but Katie Nolan, I think, better in the All-Ireland final or All-Ireland semi-final, so she wasn't too happy. I thought Anne might come back as an outfield player last year, maybe to try and beat that record. But no, there is a good bit of crack there. But I suppose, again, your stats and GPS, you have to use them in the right way. There's no point for a player doing 12K in a game and they're not touching any ball, just running up and down the line all day. So it's getting that balance right. That's crucial. And same thing with stats. You need to look at them, but again, a player can be on the ball 7 times, scored 1-6. A player can be on the ball 10 times and doesn't score anything. So you have to balance it up, I suppose.
Absolutely. From your time coaching, I suppose, what is your definition of success? I know every team is different and you all have different goals, but overall, what do you define as success from your point of view, working with a team and maybe on an individual basis with players?
Yes, it's a really hard one to answer. I suppose at this level, when you're expected to be winning All Irelands and stuff like that, I suppose winning is nearly the only thing you're measured on. So from the outside, it's funny, you win a game by a point and you're the greatest manager, the greatest team, and the best tactics, and everything you did was right. Every decision you made was right. When you lose by a point, it's everything you did was wrong. You're the worst manager, and what were you doing this, and what are you doing that? But look, you just have to get on with it. I suppose at the end of the year, I just look back and what did I do? Look at myself, and did I do everything I could, and could I have done any more? And I asked the same of the players, and I think you just you kind of have that feeling at the end of the year whether you gave it everything, and I think we had that this year in the dressing room, even though we were very down, very upset and distraught after losing the semi-final. I think we knew we gave it everything. It didn't work for us, but I think we could look back and say we did everything we could, and obviously there's things we could have done better. But I think that you have a good relationship with the players is important, and I'd hate being involved in a setup where players wouldn't talk to you at the end of the year and stuff like that when you hear in different camps. And look, I think once everyone is kind of talking to each other at the end of the year, it's not a bad year.
Yeah, that's a good way of measuring it. So I'm going to move on to Sideline 7. It's the same 7 questions at the end of every episode. Question 1, what is your favourite quote?
I just got this one from Roy T. Bennett. Don't be pushed around by the fears in your mind, be led by the dreams in your heart.
Brilliant. And do you use quotes much with the girls? Is that something that they enjoy, or do you kind of stay away from that?
Yeah, I'd use them the odd time. I suppose if you're doing a PowerPoint, maybe at the start of the year or during the year or something like that, you might just throw in one at the end. But no, not too often. I suppose you can throw in a few cliches and stuff like that during the year, but
yeah.
I suppose you can't throw in too many either.
There's no I in team. Is that one?
Yeah.
Second question: best sporting event you've been to?
Just going to pick 2 here. I suppose the All Ireland final 2000, Kilkenny beat Offaly always stands out for me. It was the first All Ireland final that I was at that Kilkenny actually won. I felt I was a jinx there for a long time. I went to the 91 All Ireland final. It was my first ever All Ireland final. We lost. It was at the night. Our mother and father didn't bring me to 92. We won. Didn't bring me to 93. We won. My brother was in the minor All Ireland in 95. They lost. I went to 98 senior All Ireland and minor All Ireland. They lost. And 99 All Ireland. They lost. So 2000, I finally seen Kilkenny win All Ireland. I thought it was just every match I went to, the last. So that was probably I just remember that day Kilkenny were awesome. That day DJ Carey scored 2-4 for play, and it was the day Henry Shefflin really came alive and came on the scene. So that was a huge day. And I follow Arsenal, so Arsenal. I go over to the Emirates at least once every year if I can. So a match that stands out to beat Man United 2-1. I was at a few defeats Man United at the Emirates, so it was nice to see Arsenal beat United 2-1. Thierry Henry scored a goal in the 92nd minute to beat United. So my brother is a Man United fan, and he was there beside me, so it was great to beat United that day.
Very good. You mentioned there going to All Ireland finals. How important is that for players to go to matches and actually watch the players? And I suppose something I've done recently is I actually, let's say, pick an individual. I go to a random club game where I know a certain elite level player is playing, and I'll watch them for the entire match. How important is it for younger players to watch other players, and even for coaches to watch other coaches and learn from them?
I think it's huge, yeah. I get a huge amount from it. You can watch matches on the TV, but you don't get to see things unless you're at the match, you know, the different, like the way the games are gone, hurling and football, it's the movement is just incredible where players are. You don't know what's going on if you're watching on telly. So getting to see that and learn on different things, you know, even like, you know, trying to rob a few puck out strategies and stuff like that is great on the day. So look, there's so much you can use, and even for players, young players as well. You know, I think you can't beat it. And you know, again, you know, we won the All Ireland last year, 2 years ago. But you know, the girls, you know, I know they weren't at the game, but we're there to watch it, and there's someone to look up to, you know. And some of them girls then won the minor All Ireland with Kilkenny there recently. The under 16s got to the final. So I think it's always important that you have role models, and you know, that's the thing we say to the girls, that they are role models, and what they do is very important, and the message that they're sending to the rest of the girls, that they're the standard now, and try to get the rest of the girls to follow. So you know, as a coach and players, I think you can't beat being at matches. I think you learn so much from it. And you know, even going to the All Ireland this year was very, very hard to go to the All Ireland after being involved in the last 2 All Ireland finals on the sideline on the pitch and watching, you know, being up in the stand. It just felt surreal, but I suppose it gives you that kind of determination and, you know, and hunger to try and get back there next year.
Do you find that for yourself or as the group, do you find you're more motivated by success or failure?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. You know, I suppose you look at it both ways. You know, when you lose a few All Irelands, you can say you're motivated to come back and win, but I suppose you have the doubts in your head that what if it goes wrong again? What if we lose again? Then, you know, I suppose when you win, you know, you've done it, and what can you do different? But you know, it's, you know, Colin Murray said it after the All Ireland final. You know, to become a great team, you have to do 2, 3 in a row, and you know, that's what we were trying to do this year, and we came up short. So you know, we're going to try to do everything we can to get back there next year. But you know, there's a lot of good teams who are trying to do the same thing, and you know, that's the reality of it. So look, it's a hard one, you know, and I suppose look, it just shows how good the likes of Limerick are at the moment. The Kenny hurlers of the past, the Dublin footballers, the ladies footballers in Dublin, you know, to keep coming back year after year, it's just incredible to have that hunger. You know, some of them lads off the Kenny team, like Tommy Welsh, Jay Lane, great friends of mine, and you know, every year they went back in January, Jackie Terrell, you know, and they knew going back that, you know, if they didn't hit the ground running, they wouldn't be on the team. So they had to go back fitter than everybody else. And you know, that's the mentality they had, that they wanted to play every Welsh Cup game, every league game, because they felt if they weren't playing, they'd lose their place. And you know, that's a great place to be.
Mm-hmm. Question 3, biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, playing or coaching?
Yeah, so I suppose for playing, it was definitely being dropped off the Kenny senior panel, as I mentioned earlier on. You know, it really hit me hard. I was, you know, my first year on the panel, I got a bit of game time. I came on the league final and Leinster final and got important scores at the end of the games. And, you know, I was delighted to win the All Ireland my first year on the panel. And second year then I broke my ankle in May, and, you know, I was out for 2 or 3 months, and I got back to play under 21, but I didn't get back on the senior panel, and you know, I was struggling for form a little bit, but I thought my form was getting back with the club. We got to an All Ireland club semi-final, and we're betting a replay with Newtown Chandler. I thought it was, you know, really starting to get going again. And you know, I suppose Brian Cody gave me the dreaded phone call, and that was the end of it. You know, I was gone off the panel at the age of 20, and you know, you know, I wanted all my life. It was my dream just to get on that Kilkenny panel. You know, that's all I ever wanted to do was hurl for Kilkenny, and to be gone so quick. You know, there wasn't too many players that ever get back on it, so I knew my chances were very limited. And you know, that was definitely the biggest setback. And you know, it's something that the other one, I suppose, on the other side of things, coaching, managing, would be the 2019 All Ireland. And Downey was manager, so it was my first year in as coach, and losing the All Ireland final, it was just, you know, I suppose I went up thinking that just because we'd lost 2 All Irelands, that there's no way we could lose a third one. And it was just, you know, when Galway got 4 or 5 points up near the end, and I knew the game was gone, it was just looking around Croke Park, it was just one of the worst feelings of my life. It was just so empty, and going into the dressing room, and you know, it's just, what do you say to girls? And then you go back to the Red Cow for the 3rd year in a row. They're sitting there after losing the All Ireland final, and their parents are there, and everyone is crying, everyone is down, and you're just like, where do we go from here? Like, you know, it was just heartbreaking. And you know, but I suppose I learned a huge amount from it, and you know, I tried to, and we did as a group, I suppose, learn from it and make sure that we wouldn't be in that situation again the following year.
Do you think it made the win sweeter that you'd gone through 3 losses?
Yeah, no, I suppose I wasn't there for the first 2, so, but you know, it definitely did. You know, I think when that final whistle went, I just think the relief was just unbelievable. You know, it just felt there was a dark cloud hanging over the whole place, you know, for the years that was in it. And you know, it was just a relief that, look, we finally done it, you know, because again, I don't know how the girls would have came back from losing 4 No, it would be horrific to, what do you say different? How do you try and get them going again? I think it just the relief when that final whistle went, and it definitely made it sweeter. But look, I wouldn't like to go through it again now, to be honest with you.
Question 4: your biggest achievement on or off the pitch?
So on the pitch, definitely winning the county final with my own club of Loughlin's, the senior county final in 2001. It was the first time in our club we'd ever won it. I was only 18, and I was starting on team. We'd lost the year before, because I seem to lose a lot of finals before I win one. But I suppose we weren't ready the year before. It was a great achievement to get to the final. But the following year, it was I never was more confident going into a game, and we just played unbelievable. We were playing Great Ballycallan, and their team had, I think, every one of their forwards had played intercounty for Kilkenny, and they never scored from play on the day. And the work rate out of our forward line was just incredible, and just the feeling, and just to see, my own mother and father and my uncles and people all to the club, that had never got to see club win the senior county final. A few years before that, we were junior, got relegated to junior. The club was in the complete down. And just we won the intermediate, got back up senior, and to win a senior county title was just unbelievable feeling. And I'll never forget it. I suppose off the field, then it's definitely the camogie All Ireland, winning that as a manager in my first year involved was brilliant. But it wasn't for me. It was just, I was just so happy for the girls because they knew what they'd been through, and obviously I was happy, but it was genuinely for them, that just to see how happy they are, and even my own club of Loughlin's be involved with my under 16 minor or 21 victories, and it's just to see the joy that players get out of it, and especially when they work so hard to get there. It's just that joy when they get that winning feeling. It makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely. Looking back, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self? And I suppose at that time, just setting the scene, you were about to be called into the Kilkenny panel. You'd won the county championship. Obviously, then a lot has happened since then. But what advice would you give to yourself looking back?
Yeah, it's a hard one to answer. I suppose try and enjoy it more. I suppose like everybody, when you get on a senior panel or intercounty panel, you just try and take it too serious, and you try to live your life by it. I suppose to enjoy it more and just relish the opportunity and just realise how lucky I was to be in there. I probably did that when I started off on the panel, but I suppose if I could go back, the one thing I'd change is not break my ankle. So maybe if a lad had pulled on me, maybe if I had to step to the left or the right, maybe things would have turned out different. I don't know, but just maybe to take my opportunities more. In the second year, especially, that started the year before I got injured, that maybe look back at myself. Was I working hard enough in training? Was I playing well enough in games to get the chance and stuff like that? And cause it was a tough environment back then. You had you're competing with players like Charlie Carter, TJ Carey, Eddie Brendan, these, so you just have to be at the top of your game all the time. And I suppose I just go back and enjoy it, and just because it's a great experience. And any young player coming through now, just say enjoy it, because the time just absolutely flies, and it's over before you know it.
Do you think as players we should reflect more in the moment, like when we're still playing, let's say, rather than waiting till we're coaching or out of the game to reflect back? Do you think that's something that we need to really, like, as you say, enjoy it, but realise like it won't be here forever, basically?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, because when you're playing, you're always thinking about the next game. I suppose you've been often caught where you end up, you're out in the game, you score 2-3, and you're delighted with yourself, and you're going around for the week in train, bouncing around the place, and the next day you don't strike a ball. Then you're thinking, Jesus, was I too carried away by what I did the last day? So it's just get that balance. Look, I think every player reflects at the end of the year. I suppose the good thing about split season is you're able to go from county to club, and then every player needs that couple of months just away from it, and go out and enjoy themselves, and spend time with family and friends. Just get away from it, because inter-county has just gone so serious now. Even club has gone serious, and players need that break, and just have to be able to switch off from it, because again, going back to the mental side of things, is you just can't keep that going all year round. You just have to switch off and do other things in your life as well.
What do you do to switch off in the off season, or do you switch off? Probably not.
I try to, yeah. I suppose, look, busy with two young lads at home. They definitely help me switch off, so I spend a lot of time with them. I suppose I go to a lot of other matches and stuff, where you're not really, going to matches, maybe looking for things, but you're just more enjoying them than actually, I try to play a bit of golf, but I suppose when the off season is now, the weather isn't good enough for golf. So, look, I suppose spend a bit of time at home is what I'd be doing when I'm not coaching, because I'm gone long enough during the year.
Yeah, exactly. Second last question, dream dinner guest and why? And you can actually open the table to a few people. I'm not strict on it.
Arsene Wenger would definitely be the person I'd love to have a chat with. I suppose a big Arsenal supporter, so I'd love to ask him some of the questions. Why did he sign some of these players, or why did some of these players leave, and why didn't he do this and why didn't he do that? But he's a legend. What he's done, he came in and changed the game. He was dealing with players. Some players were alcoholics on the Arsenal team and stuff like that. Tony Adams, things like that, and what he'd done, turned them around. Turned them into absolutely unbelievable players. Got them playing a different way. Changed the way soccer played, and I suppose then, even his legacy then towards the last couple of years was very tough and getting a lot of abuse from fans and stuff like that. And, he probably should have went before, a bit earlier in his career and that. So I just find fascinating, I love the way he kind of treated the players, and even his philosophy on the game was, he wanted players to express themselves, but I suppose he got caught up. He had some of the best players ever in the world on a team. Then he had a very poor team, and he didn't really change up his tactics. We mentioned earlier on about evolving. He probably didn't do that. He let them players, let them go and play, whereas I think they need a bit more guidance. So I just would love to have a chat. I think he'd be a fascinating character. Even when he talks now, I love listening to him, and I think he talks a lot of sense. So I'd love to meet him for a dinner for sure.
Final question before I let you go. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
Busy. Yeah, busy. So, just the last couple of years have been just crazy. Moved into a new house, 2 young kids, married a few years ago, wife Alison, and got a new puppy a few months ago as well. And obviously been involved with any senior camogie team, joint manager of St. Kieran's College, started, kind of new job this year in St. Kieran's as career guidance teacher. So, there's a lot going on. Very busy, so I think maybe in a few years I'll look back and wonder where to get the time to do it all. But I love every part of it, so I wouldn't change it for the world.
Brilliant. Look, Brian, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed that. Loads of talking points there for coaches. Just want to wish you the very best of luck next year and beyond. And thanks again for your time.
Yeah, no problem, Orla. Thank you.
A massive thank you to Brian for joining me today. I just want to wish him the very best of luck moving forward. The response in the coaching series so far has been phenomenal. Thank you to all the listeners and anyone who has sent in messages or shared the content. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a rating and a review, as it does help the show grow. And don't forget to check out the brand new website, thesidelinelive.com, for more content. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.